Hi friends, welcome to Red Ice Creations Radio. I'm your host Henrik Palmgren and this is Internet Talk Radio, recorded from the west coast of Sweden. Our website of course is redicecreations.com. And if you're new to the show, head on over to the site and check out our free radio archive going back to our start about 10 months ago. We also have a subscriber-based archive with much more interviews available for everyone who wants to support this radio show on the site. So head on over to the website redicecreations.com and click on subscribe or sign up and read more about it. Big thanks to Christopher Morse from creativecosmos.org and also Shab Danor for being with us last week talking about the Kabbalah, spiritual teachings and much more. Chris is a monthly regular on the show, so heads up for his visits the first Thursday each month. Okay, today we have Duncan O'Finian with us, a former super soldier. I guess you could say he's a trained black budget soldier working for a faction either within or above the US military. And today we're going to dive into Duncan's experiences and talk about his memories of the training, the mind control and the programming. And we'll also speculate about a few things, and this is really interesting material, so stay tuned. Welcome everyone. Today we have a very interesting guest with us. His name is Duncan O'Finian, and a while back I linked up a Project Camelot video interview with Duncan on redicecreations.com, so you might be familiar with some of the things that Duncan has experienced and speaks about. Today I thought we could dive into Duncan's story from the beginning so we don't leave anyone behind and who might not have seen this video I'm speaking about, but there's very much to talk about here today, so I'd just like to dive into it. So let's say welcome to Duncan, and thank you very much for being here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you here. So why don't we start at the beginning, Duncan? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background for people who aren't aware of you and your story.
Well, my story basically starts in 1966 when I was 6 years old. I was taken by my parents at that time to a little business in the town I grew up in and taken into a back room. It was one of those rooms that, you could walk right by it, the door was the wall, so to speak. If you didn't know it was there, you wouldn't even notice it. And we went in, and there was a group other kids about my age, anywhere from 5, 6, 7 years old. And I remember there being about 8 to 9 of them. Now, there could have been more or less. And they're all sitting at these small tables working puzzles. And I was told to sit down, and I was given some blocks and told to make a picture out of the blocks. And some time passed, and I did. And I didn't know what I had made. I didn't know what the picture was or what it meant. And I remember the lady who was conducting the test smiling and saying that the gentleman who was there overseeing, we have one, or we've got one. And then I was given something to drink, and I remember getting very sleepy, and I don't remember anything else until I was 9 or 9.5 years old.
So, okay, so 9 years old, we have a huge gap in between here. How do we connect this with where you're at today, so to speak? How old are you today, if we can ask you that?
Sure, I'm 46.
And you? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, after 9, I had a couple of years of relatively, normalcy. I was in and out of the hospital a couple of times for what I don't know. And then I started having memory gaps again, sometimes a couple of weeks, sometimes as much as a year. And this went on and on until I was in my early 20s. And what happened is about 12 years ago now, I was involved in an automobile accident. and I was rear-ended by a vehicle at least 3 times the size of the one I was in, and it was a horrendous accident. And it herniated and ruptured 3 discs in my neck and ripped all the tendons and the muscles. And it was a major injury. And I was given an MRI. Now, I never had one before. And that's when I found out that there is a chip, a cranial chip in there. And from what I understand, from the things that I've been told by some quote-unquote experts in this, the chip interacted with the MRI, and they did not interact well. And at that time, if you can imagine 1,000 TV screens, and each TV screen is a picture, and each picture is a memory, and they're all rushing at you at once. And I came out there screaming and fighting my way out of the tunnel and everything. And that's when all the memories started to come back. And a lot of those memories, things that I thought were just nightmares, you know, ever since I was a young teen.
Yeah.
And I started finding out, well, they're not nightmares. They actually happen. And I started from there trying to find every scrap of information, every puzzle piece I could find to try to put my life back together.
So, very interesting stuff. I mean, so let's dive into it. I mean, by the way, do you have at this point, any background on, you know, why, you know, what you were, you know, subjected to, and who did this to you?
Oh, yeah. I guess we can start backwards and move to the front and then kind of switch around a little bit.
Sure.
One of the things that I found out about 3 years ago now that kind of made all the puzzle pieces fit together is that my father, who has been deceased for about 15 years now, was at one time a CIA agent.
Yeah.
And he was into some pretty heavy-duty stuff along with a friend of his that I met once. And I found this out, I would say by accident, but I've come to know that in life there are no accidents. Everything happens for a purpose.
Yeah.
Is I went to the Virgin Islands, to the island of St. Thomas, where I'm property manager of some land down there. And I found out that I had lived there as a young child, from 6 to 9, and a couple of years between 9 and 14. I spent about 3 years on the island of St. Thomas, and that's where my dad and a couple of his friends were based at, with San Juan, Puerto Rico, and Calamita and the Virgin Islands, and some other places down there. And this was all told to me by the attorney that I have, and we went some of the old guys down there that have been in the government for 40 years, and they confirmed this to me as well. So with that knowledge, things started to make sense. Okay? And now going back to the beginning from 1966, one of the things that I say it's a lifelong experiment. And one of the things that they were wanting to do, everybody remembers Hitler's experiments with super soldiers.
Sure, yeah.
Well, this is basically just the same thing, just with updated methods. They were doing the exact same things.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they did to us was split off our personalities. And I can't say whatever techniques were used on anyone else, because this was done to us one-on-one.
Yeah.
And I vividly remember the guys in the lab coats telling me it was time for my treatments. They were treatments okay. One of the things they did was, imagine being 6 years old or 7 years old, strapped naked to a wooden chair with your hands on the arms of the chair with your fingers spread open, and then they insert needles underneath your fingertips, and then they put electrodes to those needles and turn the juice on.
Okay.
And the reason for this is most people know that when the body goes through enough shock, enough pain, you black out.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the Nazis during that time had created a drug that blocks those receptors, so you don't black out. So it's just increased, and you have, at that time, your psyche, your soul, or however you want to say it, has a choice. Split off into an alternate personality, or just die, cease to exist.
Yeah.
And in my case, I split off into an alternate personality. And once they have that alternate personality in place, it's strengthened by hypnosis and other drugs, and more shock treatments and torture, et cetera, and they have a personality, a human being, with a totally clean slate.
Yeah.
That they can teach and train any way they want.
So we're talking about trauma-based mind control here, basically.
Exactly.
So, okay, and by the way, do you know when you're you mentioned your chip that you had in your brain? Do you still have this? Have you taken this out, or what happened to that?
No, and I really don't know anywhere or anyone who could do it.
Yeah.
I don't have a clue or the technical knowledge to even venture a guess as to how they put it there.
So, regarding your lost memories or your lost years, do you have a full picture at this point, or all your memories have returned to you, or is it like fragments?
Not all. I've gotten enough fragments over the years. Like I like to say, each memory is a piece to a larger puzzle. And I've gotten enough fragments over the years to start this puzzle to look pretty good now.
Oh, yeah.
And I continue to regain certain memories. And I've been traveling around, finding other people, and that's one of the reasons that I actually, a couple of years ago, started doing interviews, was to try to find other people that were involved in these things.
Yeah.
And we found quite a few, actually. Much more, many more than we expected.
So during this period, you were trained, I guess, for let us say like this. Was this a military program that you were part of?
I would say more like a paramilitary. Yes, hand-to-hand combat, all forms of weapons. Quite honestly, there isn't a gun or a weapon made that I can't shoot accurately. And there's witnesses to this. I've had numerous people go to the firing range with me. As far as hand-to-hand combat's concerned, I was considered one of the best that they had. And I did actually let that carry over into what I like to call my subnormal life. I did own a couple of martial arts studios. I taught for a living for several years. Fought the tournament circuit for a while. Fought several full contact fights as a semi-professional. And that's, how I made my living for a while.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and of course you mentioned the term